The scorching Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty arena of Maverick County Livestock Auction, where weathered cowboys and cattle buyers gathered for the monthly bull sale that would determine the fate of dozens of animals. The air was thick with dust, sweat, and the pungent smell of livestock, while the sound of boots scraping against wooden bleachers mixed with the occasional lowing of cattle waiting their turn. In the center ring, under the harsh spotlight that cast long shadows across the packed dirt floor, stood a massive black bull with a pronounced limp in his right hind leg. "Lot 47!" bellowed auctioneer Hank Dalton, his voice echoing through the cavernous tin-roofed building like a gunshot. His weathered face showed the strain of trying to move inventory that nobody seemed to want. "This here's Thunder Ridge, former breeding bull, 5 years old, injured in transport last month. Starting bid at $500. The crowd fell into an uncomfortable silence that stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Cowboys shifted uneasily in their seats, shaking their heads and exchanging knowing glances. This wasn't what they had come for today. They wanted young, strong animals with proven bloodlines and championship potential. Thunder Ridge stood motionless in the center of the ring, his scarred hide telling silent stories of better days when he had been valued and respected. His left horn was chipped and broken, a testament to some forgotten struggle, and his once powerful frame now carried the weight of rejection and neglect like a physical burden. The bull's coat, which had once gleamed like polished obsidian, was now dull and patchy in places where old injuries had healed poorly. His massive shoulders, still impressive despite everything, seemed to sag slightly under the weight of countless disappointments. But his eyes, those deep, dark eyes that seemed to hold more intelligence than most people expected from livestock, remained alert and proud, unbroken despite everything he had endured. "Come on, folks!" Hank's voice cracked with barely concealed desperation as he surveyed the unresponsive crowd. "This bull's got excellent bloodlines. His sire was Dakota Thunder and his dam was from the legendary Stormbreaker line. Do I hear 250? 100? Anybody willing to give this animal a chance?" Snickers rippled through the crowd like wildfire, each laugh another dagger thrust into whatever dignity Thunder Ridge had left. "That bull ain't worth the bullet to put him down," muttered rancher Buck Morrison, his voice loud enough for everyone within 50 feet to hear clearly. The cruel laughter that followed his comment cut through the air like a whip, each chuckle another blow to the already defeated animal's spirit. "Look at that limp," added another voice from the crowd, dripping with disdain. "He couldn't catch a 3-legged calf, much less serve as a breeding bull. What's the point of keeping something around that can't do its job? Somebody should put that poor animal out of his misery," chimed in a woman wearing expensive jewelry and a designer hat that screamed money and privilege. "It's almost cruel to keep him alive in that condition." But from the back of the auction house, cutting through the sea of mockery and dismissal, a young man in expensive boots and a pristine Stetson stepped forward with purpose. 22-year-old Chase Wellington had never set foot in a cattle auction before that sweltering afternoon, and everything about his appearance screamed inexperience and privilege. His hands, soft and unblemished from a life spent in air-conditioned offices and luxury vehicles, trembled slightly as he raised them high above the crowd of hardened ranchers and cattlemen. Chase's heart pounded in his chest as he felt the weight of hundreds of eyes turning toward him. His throat was dry as sandpaper, and his expensive shirt was already soaked with nervous sweat despite the industrial fans working overtime to move the stifling air. But something about Thunder Ridge's eyes, proud, defiant, unbroken despite everything, spoke to him on a level deeper than reason or logic. $50, Chase called out, his voice barely audible over the crowd's murmurs and the distant sound of cattle in the holding pens. The arena fell completely silent, as if someone had sucked all the air out of the building. All eyes turned to the young man whose designer jeans and spotless hat screamed money and inexperience to everyone present. Chase felt his cheeks burn red under the scrutiny of the crowd, but he held his ground, his jaw set with determination that surprised even himself. "Well, I'll be damned," someone whispered in the crowd. "The rich kid wants to play cowboy." $50? Hank repeated, his voice filled with a mixture of surprise and relief. "Do I hear 55? Anyone? Going once at $50? The silence stretched on, broken only by scattered chuckles and whispered comments about money and foolishness. No one else was willing to bid even a penny on the broken-down bull, not even to spite the young millionaire's son. "Sold!" Hank slammed his gavel down with finality before anyone could object or mock the ridiculously low price. Lot 47 goes to the young gentleman for $50. As Chase walked through the crowd toward the ring to claim his unexpected purchase, he heard the whispers following him like a gathering storm. "Rich kid playing cowboy," someone muttered with barely concealed contempt. "That bull will kill him before sunset," added another voice, filled with cruel amusement at the thought of easy money meeting harsh reality. "His daddy's oil money can't save him from 2,000 pounds of angry beef," laughed a third observer. Thunder Ridge watched Chase approach with those intelligent dark eyes, studying this stranger who had just changed both their destinies forever. The bull's massive frame remained perfectly still, but there was something in his gaze that suggested an awareness and intelligence far beyond what most people expected from livestock. His ears twitched slightly as he processed the sounds around him. The crowd's laughter, the young man's nervous breathing, the scrape of expensive boots on dirt. Chase reached the fence and climbed over carefully, his movements uncertain but determined. He reached out slowly, his hand trembling as he touched Thunder Ridge's scarred flank for the first time. The bull's hide was warm and solid beneath his palm, and Chase could feel the powerful muscles beneath the skin, still strong despite the visible injuries and the pronounced limp. Thunder Ridge didn't flinch or move away from the gentle contact. Instead, he seemed to lean slightly into the touch, as if he had been waiting years for someone to see past his injuries and limitations to the strength and spirit that still burned within his massive chest. His breathing slowed, and for just a moment the tension seemed to leave his powerful frame. 3 weeks after the auction, Chase Wellington stood in the pristine stables of his family's sprawling Lone Star Ranch, watching Thunder Ridge settle into his new home with a mixture of hope and anxiety that gnawed at his stomach like a persistent ache. The bull's limp was noticeably less pronounced now, thanks to the daily care and attention from veterinarian Dr. Sarah Martinez, but the other ranch hands still shook their heads and whispered among themselves whenever they saw the massive animal grazing peacefully in the pasture, as if his very presence was an affront to their professional sensibilities. The Wellington Ranch was a monument to Texas wealth and power, spanning over 50,000 acres of prime cattle country that had been in the family for 4 generations. The main house, a sprawling mansion of limestone and timber, commanded a view of rolling hills that stretched to the horizon. The stables where Thunder Ridge now resided were better appointed than most people's homes, with climate control, automatic watering systems, and veterinary facilities that rivaled those found at major universities. "Mr. Wellington," ranch foreman Jake Hawkins approached with obvious concern etched across his weathered face, his boots crunching on the immaculate gravel path that connected the various buildings of the compound. Jake had worked for the Wellington family for over 20 years, starting as a young cowhand and working his way up through sheer competence and unwavering loyalty. "Your daddy's been asking a lot of questions about that bull lately. Maybe it's time you explained exactly what you're planning to do with him." Chase's stomach knotted with anxiety that had been building for days. His father, oil magnate Richard Wellington, had built an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars through smart investments, calculated risks, and an almost supernatural ability to spot opportunities that others missed. Buying a lame bull for $50 at a backwater auction wasn't exactly the kind of strategic thinking that Richard had spent decades trying to instill in his only son and heir. The truth was, Chase had been hiding something monumental from everyone, including his wealthy and influential family. Despite growing up on one of Texas's largest and most prestigious ranches, despite being surrounded by cattle and horses his entire life, despite the expectations that came with the Wellington name, he had never actually ridden a bull. Not once. Not even close. His father had always assumed that Chase's natural talent would kick in when needed. Just like everything else the Wellington name had always touched seemed to turn to gold. The family had a legendary reputation in Texas business circles, and Richard expected his son to carry on that tradition of excellence in every endeavor. But at 22 years old, Chase had spent far more time in corporate boardrooms than on horseback, more time reading financial reports and attending business meetings than learning the essential ranch skills that his heritage demanded of him. The weight of expectations pressed down on him like a physical burden, made worse by the knowledge that he was living a lie that grew larger with each passing day. Every time someone mentioned his natural ability or his born instincts for ranch work, Chase felt the deception eating away at him like acid. "Jake," Chase said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, as he glanced around to make sure they weren't being overheard by any of the other ranch hands. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to keep it strictly between us. Can you do that?" The grizzled foreman studied Chase's face carefully, noting the tension in the young man's jaw and the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Jake had watched Chase grow up, had seen him evolve from a curious child who asked endless questions about the animals to a teenager who seemed more interested in balance sheets than breeding programs. He nodded slowly, sensing the enormous weight in the young man's tone and the vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. "You know you can trust me, son. I've never repeated a confidence in my life, and I'm not about to start now." Chase took a deep breath, steeling himself for what felt like the most difficult confession of his life. "I want to learn to ride bulls, Jake. Real bull riding, not just sitting on some gentle practice animal for a few seconds. I want to start with Thunder Ridge, and I want to do it right." Jake's weathered face went pale as the implications of Chase's words sank in. His eyes widened, and he took an involuntary step backward, as if Chase had just announced his intention to jump off a cliff. "Son, are you completely out of your mind? That bull may be lame, but he's still a 2,000-pound animal with a grudge against the world and the strength to turn you into hamburger. And you've never even what?" Chase interrupted, his pride stinging at the unfinished accusation hanging in the air between them. "Never even rode a bull before," Jake finished gently but firmly, his voice carrying the weight of decades of experience with dangerous animals and overconfident young men. "Hell, Chase, I've watched you your whole life. You're smart as a whip when it comes to business matters. You can read a financial statement like it's a bedtime story. But this isn't business. This is life and death, and there's no board meeting or negotiation that's going to save you if things go wrong." Chase walked over to Thunder Ridge's spacious pen, his expensive boots crunching on the perfectly maintained hay-covered ground. The massive bull lifted his great head from his feed trough, water dripping from his muzzle as he studied Chase with those remarkably intelligent dark eyes. There was no aggression in that gaze, no hint of the violence that everyone seemed to expect from him. Instead, there was something that Chase had never seen in any other animal: a quiet understanding, a recognition of shared isolation and rejection. "Jake, my father thinks I'm ready to take over a significant portion of the ranch operations," Chase said, his voice heavy with the weight of confession. "Next month, he's hosting the annual Wellington Rodeo Championship. It's the biggest event on our social calendar, and every major cattle rancher, oil executive, and politician in Texas will be there. 3,000 people, Jake. And he expects me to ride in the exhibition, to show everyone that I'm worthy of carrying on the Wellington tradition." Chase's voice cracked slightly as the full magnitude of his situation became clear even to himself. "If I can't do this, if I can't prove that I belong in this world, I'll lose his respect forever. I'll never be worthy of the Wellington name, and everything our family has built will eventually crumble because the heir isn't strong enough to hold it together." The foreman's expression softened as he heard the genuine pain and fear in Chase's voice. He had watched this young man grow up carrying the enormous burden of family expectations, always trying to live up to a legacy that seemed impossibly large and demanding. The Wellington name carried weight in Texas that few outsiders could truly understand. It opened doors, created opportunities, and demanded a level of excellence that could crush a person if they weren't strong enough to bear it. "Chase, there are safer ways to learn these skills," Jake said carefully, choosing his words with the precision of a man who understood the delicate nature of pride and family obligation. "We could start you on some gentler animals, work you up gradually over several months." "No," Chase said with a firmness that surprised both men. "It has to be Thunder Ridge. Don't you see, Jake? We're both rejects trying to prove we belong somewhere. We're both carrying the weight of other people's low expectations. If I can't trust him with my life, how can I ever trust myself with anything that really matters?" Jake studied the fierce determination burning in Chase's eyes and saw something he had never noticed before. The same stubborn courage and refusal to accept defeat that had built the Wellington fortune in the first place, just pointed in a direction that no one had anticipated. It was the kind of determination that could either forge a man into something extraordinary or destroy him completely. and Jake realized that Chase had already made his choice. The morning sun cast long, dramatic shadows across the practice arena as Chase Wellington climbed onto the wooden fence with trembling hands, his heart hammering against his ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. The arena, specially constructed for this purpose over the past week, was a testament to the Wellington family's resources. Professional-grade steel railings, impact-absorbing dirt flooring mixed with sand for optimal cushioning, and safety equipment that rivaled what was used in professional rodeo circuits across the country. Thunder Ridge stood in the center of the ring like a monument to power and patience, fitted with a practice saddle that looked impossibly small against his massive frame. The leather was supple and well-oiled, custom-made by the finest saddle maker in Texas specifically for this unusual partnership. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a veterinarian with over 15 years of experience treating rodeo animals, checked her comprehensive medical kit one final time, while Jake Hawkins adjusted the protective padding around the arena walls with the meticulous care of a man who understood that one mistake could mean death or permanent disability. "Remember," Jake called out, his voice carrying the weight of decades of experience with dangerous animals and overconfident young men. 8 seconds is all you need for a qualified ride in professional competition. But first, let's see if you can manage 3 seconds without getting yourself killed or permanently maimed. For the past week, Chase had been training relentlessly under Jake's watchful and often critical eye. His soft, privileged hands were now blistered and raw from rope work, the pain a constant reminder of how far he had to go and how much he had taken for granted throughout his pampered life. His expensive designer clothes had been permanently replaced with worn jeans, protective gear, and boots that bore the scars and dirt stains of countless practice sessions that often ended with him eating dirt and questioning his sanity. Every muscle in Chase's body ached with a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that he had never experienced in his climate-controlled, cushioned existence. His shoulders burned from rope work, his legs were bruised from countless falls, and his pride was battered from the constant reminders of his inexperience. But somehow, incredibly, his determination had only grown stronger with each passing day, fed by a fire that he hadn't known existed within himself. Thunder Ridge had undergone an equally remarkable transformation during their time together. Under Dr. Martinez's expert care and a carefully designed rehabilitation program, his limp had improved dramatically, and the daily interaction with Chase had awakened something profound and almost spiritual in the bull's wounded spirit. The animal that had once been dismissed as worthless, broken, and destined for slaughter was remembering what it felt like to have purpose, to be valued and respected by another living being who saw past his physical limitations to the strength and nobility that still burned within. The bull's coat had regained much of its former luster, his eyes were brighter and more alert, and there was a spring in his step that hadn't been there since his injury. More importantly, he had begun to display behaviors that fascinated everyone who observed him, a level of intelligence and emotional awareness that seemed almost human in its complexity and depth. "Take it slow and easy," Jake advised as Chase prepared for what would be his first real ride on Thunder Ridge after days of groundwork and trust-building exercises. "This bull isn't like any other animal I've worked with in 30 years of training. He's got a different kind of intelligence, almost human-like awareness and emotional sensitivity. Treat him like a partner in this endeavor, not an opponent you need to conquer through force or dominance." Chase nodded, his throat dry with nervous anticipation as he slowly and carefully slid down onto Thunder Ridge's broad, powerful back. The moment his legs wrapped around the bull's massive frame, he felt the animal's muscles tense beneath him like coiled steel springs ready to explode into action. This was no practice dummy or mechanical bull designed for beginners. This was a living, breathing force of nature, and Chase was about to put both their lives in each other's hands with complete trust and faith. The leather saddle creaked softly as Chase found his balance, and he could feel Thunder Ridge's powerful heart beating beneath his legs, steady and strong despite the tension of the moment. The bull's breathing was controlled and measured, as if he too understood the significance of what they were about to attempt together. "You ready for this, buddy?" Chase whispered, leaning forward to pat Thunder Ridge's massive neck with a hand that trembled only slightly. The bull's ears flicked back attentively, listening intently to the sound of his rider's voice and processing the nervousness and determination he heard there. Jake raised his weathered hand high above his head, checking one final time to ensure that Dr. Martinez was in position with her medical equipment and that all safety protocols were properly in place. 3, 2, 1, go! The gate swung open with a metallic crash that echoed through the arena like a gunshot, and Thunder Ridge exploded into motion like a black lightning bolt unleashed from captivity. But instead of the wild, unpredictable, and potentially deadly bucking that Chase had expected and feared, the bull's movements were controlled and almost measured in their intensity. It was as if Thunder Ridge understood instinctively that his rider was learning, that this partnership required patience and gradual progression rather than the brutal dominance displays typical of rodeo bulls. Chase lasted exactly 4 precious seconds before sliding off Thunder Ridge's back, landing hard in the specially prepared dirt, but emerging miraculously uninjured thanks to all the safety precautions they had implemented. As he stood up on shaking legs, dusting himself off with hands that trembled from adrenaline and residual fear, he witnessed something that made his heart skip a beat and his breath catch in his throat. Thunder Ridge had stopped bucking the exact moment Chase fell from his back and was now standing calmly just a few feet away, looking back at his fallen rider with what could only be described as genuine concern and protective instinct. The bull's dark eyes seemed to scan Chase for injuries, and his massive head lowered slightly as if he was trying to determine whether his partner was hurt. "Well, I'll be completely damned," Jake muttered under his breath, his eyes wide with amazement and something approaching awe. In 30 years of training bulls and riders, working with some of the most dangerous and unpredictable animals on Earth, I've never seen anything remotely like that. That bull actually cares about you, son. He's protective of you. Day after grueling day, they practiced together in the dusty arena, their bond deepening with each session like a friendship forged in fire and mutual respect. Chase's riding improved dramatically with each attempt, his balance becoming more natural and instinctive, his grip more confident and secure. Thunder Ridge seemed to respond to this progress by gradually increasing the challenge and complexity of his bucks, as if the intelligent animal was deliberately teaching Chase, pushing him just hard enough to grow stronger and more skilled without destroying his fragile confidence or causing serious injury. Dr. Martinez observed their training sessions with growing fascination, taking detailed notes on behavior patterns she had never witnessed before in her extensive career. "I've been treating and studying animals for over 20 years, she told Jake one afternoon, as they watched Chase and Thunder Ridge work together in perfect harmony. "But this relationship is unlike anything I've ever seen in my professional experience. That bull is genuinely protective of Chase, almost paternally so. He's not trying to throw him off or assert dominance. He's trying to teach him how to stay on and succeed." As the Wellington Rodeo Championship approached like an unstoppable freight train, carrying the weight of family expectations and social obligations, word began to spread through the tight-knit ranching community about the young millionaire and his most unusual training partner. Some visitors came to watch out of simple curiosity, others out of skepticism and barely concealed hope for failure, but everyone who witnessed their practice sessions walked away with the same inescapable conclusion. Something truly special and almost magical was happening in that dusty arena between a broken-down bull and an inexperienced rich kid. The Wellington Rodeo Championship had drawn the biggest crowd in its 15-year history, transforming the sprawling ranch into a carnival of Texas wealth, power, and tradition that attracted spectators from across the entire Southwest. The grandstands were packed to capacity, with over 3,000 of Texas's most influential cattle ranchers, oil executives, politicians, and rodeo enthusiasts, all buzzing with anticipation and the kind of electric energy that only comes from witnessing something unprecedented. The arena itself was a monument to Wellington excess and attention to detail, professional-grade lighting systems that could illuminate every corner with television-quality clarity, state-of-the-art sound systems that carried every word to the furthest reaches of the crowd, and safety equipment that exceeded even professional rodeo standards. Food vendors lined the perimeter, selling everything from traditional barbecue to gourmet cuisine, while a full bar served premium whiskey and imported beer to guests who had paid thousands of dollars for premium seating. News crews from 3 major networks had set up their cameras around the arena perimeter, drawn by the incredible story that had been circulating through social media and sports journalism circles for weeks. The tale of a millionaire's son who planned to ride a supposedly worthless auction reject in front of the most important people in Texas. Reporters from ESPN, Fox Sports, and CNN were positioning themselves for the best angles to capture what they sensed would be either a triumph or a disaster of epic proportions. In the competitors' area behind the chutes, Chase Wellington sat on a hay bale that had been placed there specifically for him, trying desperately to calm his racing nerves while his hands shook uncontrollably and his stomach churned with anxiety that threatened to overwhelm him completely. The sounds of the crowd, thousands of voices blending into a continuous roar, punctuated by occasional cheers and applause, seemed to press against him like a physical weight. His father, oil magnate Richard Wellington, approached through the crowd of competitors and handlers with a complex mixture of pride and deep paternal concern, etched clearly across his weathered, sun-beaten face. Richard had built his empire through calculated risks and unwavering determination, but watching his only son prepare to risk his life for reasons he didn't fully understand was testing every instinct he had developed over decades of high-stakes decision-making. "Son," Richard said gently, placing a strong, calloused hand on Chase's trembling shoulder with the care of a man who understood the weight of expectation and legacy. "You don't have to do this. Nobody here expects you to prove anything to them. You're already a Wellington. That name carries more weight in this state than you realize." "I expect it of myself, Dad," Chase interrupted firmly, standing to face his father with a newfound determination that seemed to radiate from somewhere deep within his core. "For the first time in my life, I'm doing something that truly matters to me personally. Not just something that looks good for the Wellington name and reputation or advances our business interests." Richard nodded slowly, his eyes misting slightly, as he recognized the unmistakable steel in his son's voice, the same unbreakable determination and refusal to accept defeat that he had inherited from generations of Wellington men who had built their empire through sheer willpower and an absolute refusal to back down from any challenge. "Then ride like a Wellington, son. Show them what our family is made of. But more importantly than anything else, come back to us safe and sound." As Chase made his way through the crowd of competitors, handlers, and media personnel toward the chutes, he could hear the announcer's booming voice echoing across the packed arena with theatrical flair. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have quite an extraordinary story for you today that proves the American dream is still alive and well. Young Chase Wellington, son of oil magnate Richard Wellington and heir to one of Texas's greatest fortunes, will be attempting to ride Thunder Ridge, a bull that was purchased for just $50 at a livestock auction and written off as worthless by everyone who saw him." Nervous laughter rippled through portions of the crowd, mixed with genuine curiosity and anticipation about what they were about to witness. Some spectators had come specifically to see the rich kid fail spectacularly, while others were genuinely rooting for an underdog story that seemed too incredible to be true. In the arena, Thunder Ridge waited patiently in chute number 7, his massive frame completely filling the small space that had been designed to contain much smaller animals. The bull's transformation over the past weeks had been nothing short of miraculous. His coat now gleamed with health and proper nutrition. His muscles rippled beneath skin that showed no trace of the neglect and abuse he had suffered for so long. His dark eyes were alert and focused, but strangely calm given the chaos and noise surrounding them. There was something almost zen-like about his demeanor, as if he had found a peace within himself that transcended the external circumstances. Chase climbed carefully onto the chute rails and looked down at his partner with deep affection and mutual respect that had been forged through weeks of shared struggle and gradual trust building. "This is it, buddy. Time to show all these people what we're truly made of. Time to prove that being rejected doesn't mean being worthless." As Chase settled onto Thunder Ridge's broad, powerful back, something felt dramatically different from all their practice sessions at the ranch. The bull was tense with an energy that Chase had never felt before during their training. His powerful muscles coiled like steel springs ready to explode into action. His ears swiveled constantly, and his entire massive body thrummed with an awareness and alertness that seemed to go beyond normal animal instincts. "You feeling the pressure too?" Chase whispered softly, wrapping the rope securely around his gloved hand with movements that had become second nature through countless hours of practice. But Thunder Ridge's unusual behavior wasn't nervousness or performance anxiety. It was a heightened state of awareness, as if the incredibly intelligent bull sensed something dangerous that human senses couldn't detect or understand. The massive arena fell completely silent as Chase raised his free hand high above his head in the traditional signal that he was ready to begin. Judge Bill Corrigan, a legendary figure in professional rodeo who had been brought in specifically for this event, gave the official signal that would change everything. The gate swung open with a thunderous crash that echoed through the arena like a cannon shot. Thunder Ridge burst from the chute with explosive power that took everyone's breath away, his hooves pounding the arena floor like rolling thunder from a Texas storm. For the first 3 magical seconds, everything went absolutely perfectly. Chase moved fluidly with the bull's natural rhythm, his body flowing gracefully with each powerful buck in a display of harmony that few professional riders ever achieved. The crowd roared its enthusiastic approval at the unexpected skill and partnership they were witnessing. Then, at exactly the 4-second mark, something went catastrophically and terrifyingly wrong. A structural beam in the grandstand, weakened by years of harsh Texas weather and stressed beyond its limits by today's record-breaking crowd weight, chose that precise moment to fail completely with a sharp crack that sounded like a rifle shot. A massive section of metal roofing, weighing several hundred pounds, tore loose from its moorings and began plummeting toward the arena like a deadly spear aimed directly at the spot where Chase and Thunder Ridge were performing. Most of the crowd didn't even see the disaster unfolding above them, focused as they were on the action in the arena below. But Thunder Ridge, with his supernatural awareness and protective instincts, did. The bull's massive head snapped upward with lightning speed, his intelligent eyes instantly tracking the falling debris with laser-like focus and calculating its trajectory with mathematical precision. In a split second, that defied all logical explanation and challenged everything that people thought they knew about animal intelligence. Thunder Ridge changed direction mid-buck with impossible agility, launching himself and Chase away from the impact zone with incredible precision and perfect timing. The heavy metal beam crashed into the arena floor exactly where they had been just moments before, embedding itself deep in the hard-packed earth with devastating force that would have killed them both instantly. The impact sent up a cloud of dust and debris that temporarily obscured the arena, and the crowd's cheers turned to gasps of horror as they realized what had almost happened. Chase, thrown completely off balance by Thunder Ridge's sudden evasive movement, tumbled hard from the bull's back and hit the ground with jarring impact that knocked the wind from his lungs. But instead of bucking away in panic as any normal bull would instinctively do when faced with falling debris and chaos, Thunder Ridge did something absolutely extraordinary that left everyone speechless and would be talked about for generations. He positioned his massive body directly between Chase and the continuing rain of falling debris, using himself as a living shield to protect his fallen rider from harm. His powerful legs spread wide for stability, his great head lowered defensively, and his entire 2,000-pound frame became a fortress of protection around the young man who had given him a second chance at life and dignity. A second piece of heavy roofing material came crashing down with tremendous force, striking Thunder Ridge's muscular shoulder and leaving a bloody gash, but bouncing harmlessly away from Chase's vulnerable form. The bull grunted deeply with obvious pain, but held his protective position without wavering for even a second, his eyes never leaving the young man he was shielding with his own life.